Radio.
You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation, as brought to you by the Foundational Friday. Our core aim is to present and experience an opportunity for your soul to reascend to its place of origin while cultivating a healthier spiritual awareness and emotional maturity. The show serves as a free offering to the greater community and an addendum requirement for all our new spiritual training students. For all those listening, if you'd like to move closer to the calculations and fundamental understandings of the ANU order, be sure to pick up a book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. If you desire a spiritual reading to help you map your current spiritual position in the face of your world and learn the greatest pathways for your fortune in this season, you can go to the SaduluHouse.com. That's SADULUHOUSE.com. You can also go to OrishaReligion.com to find out how you can become a student and member of the ANU Spiritual Order. That's OrishaReligion.com. Greetings, everyone. Here we are again with another session of Foundational Friday on the Enlightenment and Transformation Experience through Blog Talk Radio. I am your host, Yuya Assaan-ANU, and we are covering a couple things in this show, but I wanted to start off with answering a few questions, and I wanted to read actually a message I just received today. I don't normally get an opportunity to respond when people email me right away or message me, just because sometimes there's a bit of a backlog, and I am thankful for all of you for your patience and understanding that. But a lot of folks have questions, and a lot of folks are going through their journey and waking up, and that's been a part of this whole December 21st, 2012 experience. I know there weren't, physical destruction taking place all across the world, although there is in a sense, but it was mainly an ending of an old paradigm. And in this new space and in this new time, we have a lot of new initiates. And when I say initiates, I'm not necessarily speaking about those who have initiated in some religion, but people who have initiated in the journey and the learning space of knowing the truth, being the truth, and going beyond it to create new truths. So I received a message today from a brother by the name of Sean Tramiel Jacks, and I'm just going to read it to you, and then I'm going to share some of his information. It says, Hotep, brother, I just received my copy of Grasping the Root of Divine Power from Amazon today and have already sank my teeth into it! ! I haven't been this excited about a book in some time. My queen put me up on your Blog Talk show, and I'm currently listening to each one. We have a Blog Talk platform as well, my queen and I. It's called the Blue Click. Check us out sometime. Well, brother, I thank you for your presence, and I look forward to learning and growing through your classes soon too. So, we have someone who wants to prospectively come in as a student, but more importantly, they have their own show, and I just want to give you the name of it again. The name of it is The Blue Click. And I actually, right before I did this, I said, let me look it up real quick. I haven't had a chance to listen to any of the episodes, although the titles look very engaging. So if you can judge a book by its cover, it looks pretty good. But, check it out and tell me what you think of it. Again, I just received this email today, and I have not listened to any of the shows as of yet. So before you email me asking me for my co-signing, I'm co-signing the fact that someone is out there trying to do the good work and put the good news out there. And more importantly, like he said, my queen and I have a show. I love the fact when male and female can come together in cooperation and not behave like the opposite or opponent sex, but behave like the complementary sex. So the fact that they have this show together and they're working in unison, I'm all for it. I don't even know what they're talking about per se on the show. I know it's a show about spirituality. And like I said, the titles look real interesting, and they get into chakras and the soul and relationships, meditation, kundalini, so forth and so on. But in any event, Sean Tramiel Jacks, thank you for reaching out, and I just wanted to put a plug in for your show, and hopefully some of my listeners will go over to check you out. I don't know what days actually his show airs, but check it out. It's the Blue Click, spelled CLIQUE, that type of click, the Blue Click. All right. I found him on Blog Talk Radio, blogtalkradio.com/the Blue Click. All right. So I wanted to get into some other stuff in this time, messages and some questions that were sent to me. We've had a very interesting set of questions that have been coming through the ANU Spiritual Training Group, as well as through my private emails and some other side classes that I've been doing. And what's been interesting about it is that they've been kind of mirroring one another. And so a lot of people are in a certain space right now, especially as it relates to divination and casting surfaces. So we have a lot of folks right now who are kind of sizing up their orientation, whether it be the spiritual orientation, the soul orientation, or the directional orientation. I keep getting a bunch of questions about that. So I figured let me answer one or two of them on the air for others who may have a similar questions, or you might just learn something in the process. It sounded like Bill Cosby just now. So we have another question by Brother Anthony Ligon, or Anthony Ligon. I'm sorry if I messed your name up, brother. Anthony Ligon. But he reached out and he said, I have a question. First, I bought your book and I'm enjoying it thoroughly. My question is about the Obi directions. When we talk about the direction that it points, are you using this segment as the reference or the casting surface? For example, let's say an open segment falls in the upper right quadrant on the casting surface, and the head is pointing straight down. If I use the segment as a reference, I can say that it is pointing to 6 o'clock, correct? Or Eshe, which is ESE, the bottom quadrant. If I use the casting surface as a reference, then the segment would have to be pointing more to the left of its position to point to 6 o'clock. I hope you understand what I mean. Also, I plan on signing up for the course this week, but I have some questions beforehand. I'll ask after you respond. Once again, the book is great, and I appreciate you sharing that much desired and needed information. Okay, let's get to the question about the Obi. This has come up before, actually, and it may come up again. So hopefully someone listening to this archive will be able to answer their question before they have it. But if the segment is pointing downward, and of course we know that the Obi is pointing, if we're using the Anu Obi, we know that where the head of that cowrie is pointing is its pointer. Okay, and if we know we're using the Obi Abata, which is the kola nut, then we know where that heart is tail in the back, where you have either that Y direction telling us that it's feminine, or where it has that straight line. But that lets us know, where that heart is at the bottom. And there's illustrations of this in Grasping the Root of Divine Power, where the heart of the Obi Obata is. And of course, the head would be where it points. So no matter where it points, Brother Anthony, or I should say no matter where it lands, you go by where it's pointing. So you may cast your OB, and let's say if you have a opon, right, the round surface that we cast on, or you're just using a piece of cloth or a straw mat you bought from the dollar store. If you cast your OB and they fall off of the casting surface, it's not discounted. Now, I always pay attention when they fall off the casting surface. But if it falls off of the casting surface, you still look at where it's pointing, okay? Because in reality, the universe and the world is not as small as your casting surface, okay? So you don't necessarily want to stick to that as a hard reference per se, but you want to look at where it's pointing to. So again, if you have a segment, and let's say it lands in the west, and it's darn near spilling off your mat, but it's pointing downward. It's pointing to 6 o'clock, which is feminine energy. For all of you know by now, when you're casting, the left or the west and the south or the area closest to you are feminine. The north and the east are masculine. Okay, so those feminine quadrants represent negation, whereas the masculine quadrants represent expansion. Okay, one is negation, one is expansion. So it only matters where that segment points to. But now, let's go to the quadrant. Let's say if you cast, like where you cast it, I believe you said it was in the upper right. Okay, so you most likely cast in Ori, which is the north, okay, which is the top of the quadrant, that area which is ruled by the sacred Odu Ifa. It sees, we see. That's what Ifa means, and it's ruled by the archetype known as Shango. Shango, that energy that lives within thunder. Okay, Jakuta, the stone thrower, that's Shango. Also the hawk. So we know this is also Heru, or the drummer. Okay, the king, the Alafin of the Oyo kingdom. Now, anyway, that was just a side little, put your side note with the star. But anyway, so now let's say you have a segment that falls in the north, but it's pointing to the south. That means you have something that's sitting in the Shango or the Ori region, and it's pulling. If it's pointing down to the south, it could possibly mean that it's pulling the energy of that southern quadrant into the northern quadrant. You see? So it could mean that, or it could mean that it's heading from north to south. You have to look at what else falls in relationship to it. So let's say, for instance, you have an open segment that falls in the north, but it's pointing straight downward, which is what you described as a cardinal point. If it's pointing straight to that 6 o'clock, we'll say for now, pointing straight to that 6 o'clock, that's one of the cardinal points where the energy is strongest for that Eshe region, ruled over by the sacred Odu of Idi Meji, wherein we have Yemoja, Idi Meji. Okay, Idi Meji deals with the condensation of matter, things becoming manifested, like Yemoja, right? She's the great mother. So what does she do? She gives birth to everything in the physical world. Ye Omo Eja. Okay. So now, if you have a segment that is in the north, but it is pointing down there to the south, it could be pulling that energy of Yemoja into the area of intellect and spirituality, which is what the north represents. It could be joining Yemoja and Shango together, which is a formula of balance. Just so anyone knows, you balance the color of red with the color of blue. You balance the color of blue with the color of red. Now notice that Yemoja's color is blue and white, sometimes blue and silver. Shango is red and white. So to really understand it, and you understand that these are complementary energies. Now I'm going to give you a little Odu Ifa lesson. Okay, when you're casting Odu, which you will be doing in phase 2 of spiritual training, soon come, right? When you're casting Odu Ifa, whatever your casting is, you always want to look at its polar opposite. That's very important. Even if you get a reading, right? If you go and get a reading, and if someone's casting Odu, don't be afraid to ask what Odu came up. You know, don't feel awkward about that. If they're casting that first Odu that they cast, could you say, hey, can I just have that for my notes? And many people will give it to you anyway, because when they're giving you the reading, they should be saying the sacred Odu of is saying this to you, as opposed to, look, you need to get your life together, child, and go home and clean them fleas out of your carpet. You know, it should be saying the sacred Odu is telling you this, because I'm not telling you, the Odu is telling you. Okay, so whatever that Odu is, you always want to look for its complement. Now, when you have Ed and Iwori, these are complements to each other. One is dealing with introspection and thought, that's Iwori. One is dealing with manifestation and activity. Okay, that is ED. All right, or ED sometimes even deals with being suppressed or enclosed, physically restrained. Okay, that's ED. So now, anyway, brother. So when we're dealing, I'm giving you just all this information. Now, of course, in the east, we know that is ruled by Ogbe Meji, and Obatala is there, and in the west we have Oyeku Meji, where we have our Egun as well as Olokun and Oshun. Okay, water energy, fire energy, air energy, earth energy. Okay, so now, so when a segment falls somewhere else, it could be, but it's pointing another direction. It could be a meshing of those two energies, or it could be pulling that energy up to where it's at. Okay, so and it depends on how you intuit it. Sometimes you'll have something fall like that as well, and there'll be a closed segment in between. So that could clearly mean that, let's say if you have set something that points down, let's say if it's a male segment pointing down to 6 o'clock in the north, but there's a closed segment like in front of it, blocking its way down to 6 o'clock. Well, you know that if that top northern segment represents air, intellect, but most importantly, Orun, which is heaven, the unseen world, the fifth dimension, right? And you have something blocking something's movement from the fifth dimension to Eshe, which is earth, or struggle is what Eshe means. But it's that bottom region represents the earth. So we have something falling from heaven to earth, but you now have a segment blocking it, a closed segment. Okay, this would be, of course, Agbani or a coconut, which is Agbani, or Obi Abata, or Anu Obi on its where its back is showing. That represents a closed segment. Then you might say, okay, something is blocking a gift from heaven, or something is blocking a message from heaven, or from the spirit world. It's different ways to look at it. Again, there's no set formula, and not that you're asking for that, Brother Anthony. I'm just giving a little bit more information. But there's no set formula for how a reading should read. When you see that in books, they're just playing with you, or they don't know what the heck they're talking about. There's certain energies that surround certain readings, but then that only gives you a starting point. Okay, and then from there you have to determine and intuit. This is not a soulless science. Divination is not a soulless science. Some would try to make it very mathematical and algorithmic, but it's not really that. It has those components to it, but you have to have some feminine, soul, intuitive, kinetic energy going on in order to do accurate readings. And the more you do your readings, start simple like you're doing, Anthony, the more you do those readings, the more your intuition will kick in, and as soon as you cast, you'll kind of know, well, it's pointing to the south, but I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, and then you just have to go with the feelings, and then eventually the feelings get stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's like Robert Nestle Marley says, he who feels it knows it. So your feeling will become as powerful as your knowing, because your feeling will actually be the recognition of your soul aligning with the greater soul, okay, and expressing itself through your spirit, or through your projection points, or even your throat chakra, your mouth. So your words will be right in alignment with your soul intention. Okay. And again, to really round out the Odu on that casting surface, like I said, we have Iwori, which deals with introspective thought, ED, which deals with manifestation or condensed matter. We have Ogbe, which deals with infinity, and we have Oyeku, which deals with nothingness. And just so you all know, I'm actually currently working on a book on shell reading specifically in oracles, but just dealing with shells, and that should be out in a few months. And it will be dealing with the Dilogun readings. So for those who are initiated or moving towards it, or who have just picked up a Dilogun book and just went at it themselves, what you've probably noticed is that most of the books are written from a Latin perspective. We have the Lukumi ones, and we have some Santeria ones. And the only other book really is just really a thesis that was written. It doesn't really give insight or instruction, but just stories that are connected with those particular readings. So I actually will be delivering a book to accompany Phase 2 on those type of readings, getting deeper into the Obi readings, especially Obi 9, which some folks have still needed some insight on, casting services, and most importantly, for those who are ready to start tapping into the actual Odus, or as they are expressed through the Meridin Logum. Okay, so be on the lookout for that, the book on oracles. Again, always sign up at the anunation.org site for the newsletter, so you know what's happening when things are coming to the surface. There's a lot of irons in the fire, all right? So, stay tuned for that. But in any event, I wanted to read another question, and this one comes from Justin Green, which I actually did answer, but I thought it was a good question that some of you may have. And Justin Green has been following us for a while, and hopefully he'll come in as a student soon. But he's been putting the word out and on Twitter and tweeting the shows and things like that, which is definitely cool. Appreciate that, Justin. But he says, "Good morning, sir. I've wanted to ask you for a few days now. Would you know of any literature, particularly on Ilegua, Eshu, and/or Shango? I see many on Amazon, but I want to invest in something with value. A lot of them are cartoony or in another language. Honestly, I'm looking for more literature on Ifa, period, but I don't know how to get it. I really appreciate your help." Okay, well, Justin, I kind of answered it, but I'm going to answer it again for everyone. First off, if you pick up a book and it says Ilegua on it, then you already know it's going to be in Spanish. So if you don't speak Spanish, then you might want to find something that speaks about Ilegba or Eshu. And as for Shango, most of the books are tricky because, again, they're written. Most of them are thesis books. There's one book by the name of Shango in Africa and the African Diaspora that you can check out. I have not read it, but a decent source has told me that it was a decent book. But I on my site, Orisha Religion, I'm actually in the process of building a book section. So that way, because these questions come up a lot about what books. So I'm going to create a section, it's almost done actually, of my suggestions of what you could read in certain areas, whether it be Orisha, meditation, or astral travel, whatever, as well as Anu bookstore. I'm probably going to have a component for that to answer these questions. But again, as I told Justin, I would start here as well. John Mason. Any book, he's no longer with us in the physical, but any book you can get by John Mason, get it. They're very expensive because they're out of print. So sometimes you'll find something like on Amazon maybe for like $15, and it'll go from like $15 to like $300, but his stuff was really good. His stuff was really, really good. He was on point. And if you like the flavor of how I teach and my perspectives, then I think you'll appreciate John Mason. Again, he has books. He has a book on Shango. I'm trying to remember the name, but I believe it was Shango Ararara, Wondrous Inhabitor of Thunder, something like that. And Ararara, just so you know, that's thunder in Yoruba, which I know I've probably not accented correctly. But in any event, check out John Mason's work. You'll appreciate him. And more importantly, like you said, you wanted information on Ifa. There are, you can get the Patakis. They have books now, that you can pick up. And that's one of the greatest ways to learn. It's just to learn the stories, learn the songs and the stories. And they will teach you more than someone's interpretation of these particular energies. But you have to do it in a well-rounded manner. I will advise that as well. If you're going to read about Shango, you also need to read about Heru. You need to read about all of those particular representations of that energy to give you a well-rounded perspective. And if you want to start dealing with Ifa and learning about Ifa, if you want to learn about Ifa itself, or Ifa as a culture is two different things, obviously. But if you want to learn about Ifa itself, I would suggest for anyone that you pick up a book on I Ching, or as some pronounce the I Ching. Okay, the I Ching or the I Ching is a lesser form of Ifa. All right, it's still dealing with the same light, dark, feminine, masculine dynamic. The positions are very similar. In my classes, my one-on-one classes, I actually teach my students how to correlate the I Ching with Ifa, which makes it a lot easier because you can find a lot of books on I Ching or I Ching. You can find a lot. It's not as many on Ifa, because it's an oral tradition. So this is how you can kind of round out your studies, is by pulling from other things. So you may not grab a book that says Shango on it. Heck, you might be reading a book about all of the different saviors that existed before Christ, Jesus, and that will give you information. You read about Krishna and you'll learn about Shango, or just study a book on electricity or thunder, that would be my top suggestion. But if you just want a straight book and you want to get into the thought and the mythology and things, pick up some John Mason. Outside of that, sadly, I have to say there's not a whole lot of people who I recommend as far as their books. I'm not saying that there are not good books out there. I'm not saying that people are not writing them. But I don't find a whole lot that come from a straight Yoruba perspective, although there are some, and they will be on my site. On my site, I mainly will be dealing with the Yoruba. And that's not a knock against the Santeria or the Lukumi books, because they are voluminous. They definitely put the work in when it comes to writing about what they perceive, about the tradition, which I think is really cool. But I don't necessarily connect to it, and when I do teach Yoruba, I don't teach it from that perspective. I try to get closer to the root as close to the root as I can, and I may put my perspectives into it, but everyone's going to do that. You can't really help that. But yeah, so there will be some books forthcoming. Please pay attention to the Orisha religion site, and you'll see a section there for books. You'll also see coming on the sites, as I mentioned recently, there will be subscription readings that you all can partake in for those of you who want to get readings like every month or every 2 weeks or so forth. If you're going through something, or if you're in the process of building something, or you're establishing something and you want to have that spiritual guidance on a consistent basis and lock down a day and time where you can always get me and we can talk and we can build and we can work towards it, there will be the option to purchase those subscriptions on the site as well, which will be at a 20% discount over the regular price of reading. So they're actually even cheaper. And not only that are we working on, but also for those of you who need remote ritual work, which I know is a lot of people. A lot of folks have reached out to me to do work for them remotely, and I have a lot of people I work with. So organizing all of it sometimes can be a bit of a task when I'm not reached out to in a timely fashion or in an organized manner. So I'm kind of organizing a way for all of you who now need certain things done for you, certain type of work, or you just need things to happen, and you need some help in making it happen. I'm creating some forms and things on the site so you can contact me about that. So again, there's a lot of good things on the horizon. And as far as the books, the readings, and so forth and so on, I just wanted to kind of keep this show as a Q&A session for those of you who were in need of some new information, as well as even just remember, you can always also use your casting surface for rituals. Now that you know which entities reside in each directions, when you're giving your libations, whether they be water, rum, or whatever, you can spray or you can pour in those directions, and you know that you're hitting, like you can give energy to the sacred Odu of Ogbe Meji. You can give energy to Oyeko Meji. You can give energy to Awori. You can give energy to Ed just by pouring out your liquor or your tobacco in those 4 directions. And who resides at the center? You, of course. Your Ori Inu, your consciousness. So you are at the center of the universe. You always have to remember that when you're doing any type of divination, any type of work, that you are at the center of the learning experience. You are the sun. Your third eye is the sun of the universe, and we are in a heliocentric solar system, so everything revolves around you. So in any event, that is our segment. Be on the lookout September 1st. We have another show prior to that, but we have a new show coming Sundays at 1 o'clock, and I'll be putting out a little bit more information on that, but I'm very excited about that, and all the other new things that we have coming. Make sure, if you haven't, that you sign up for the newsletter, pick up a copy of the book, join the classes, join the movement. We got a lot of people learning, a lot of people, new people coming in, and it's a very exciting time. Until next time, I'm Yuya Assaan-ANU, signing off. Peace.